Hello and welcome back to the Pasta Podcast, where we talk about nothing but pasta. Today we will not be talking about pasta. Today we will be talking about the TV show The Office. I, of course, am a pasta chef. My name is Gigi, and to my other fellow pasta chef, what is your name?
This is Olivia.
How are you doing today, Olivia?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
That's really good to hear. I'm
And
okay
yourself?
too, I
And
guess.
yourself?
I'm
Yeah.
fine. I do want to say that a lot of this is unscripted. I didn't prepare a lot of things for this. However,
90% of our podcasts
yeah.
are unscripted anyway.
Well, they don't know that.
Hey
but
everyone, my Duolingo streak is 121 right now.
crazy.
I have a friend whose Duolingo streak is 500.
That's
I
crazy.
kid you not.
Anyways, I did, however, prepare two little sections, and also the name of the pasta podcast today is Alfredo, and that is because of the classic. Did you get pizza from Pizza by Alfredo or Alfredo's Pizza?
I think it's funny. I was like looking at that and I was like, that's not a pasta, that's a sauce.
No, it's okay. It's okay. One of the episode titles that I had to do was and stuffed shells, because it was a two-parter, and I asked my mom what goes with manicotti, and she was like, "You could do the second one and stuffed shells," and I was like, "Okay, it's Italian approved." However, Pizza by Alfredo is not Italian approved.
Okay, so how are we structuring this? What are we starting off with?
I mean, I'm just going to assume that the Pasta Podcast has been listening because they know what the show The Office is. We're talking about the US version, by the way. Not the UK version. We're
We
American.
don't like Brit. If you're British, feel free to leave. We don't like you. We don't need you here. You go and conquer someone else.
Olivia, that's like all of my followers on Twitter. I only got like one that I know of that's American. Shh. Anyways, do you have any hot takes, office hot takes? Because I have a couple.
Office hot takes. Office hot take. I don't think it's funny until I watch it. I literally, like, whenever I think of The Office, I think, God, that stupid show that all these white people obsess over. And then I watch it and I'm like, this is really funny.
And then you become a white person obsessing over it.
Yeah. I was a white person the whole time. I just experienced it the second half.
Yeah. It is a very, I've never met a person of color or somebody that wasn't white that has said they like The Office. I think it's actually a very white experience.
I thought you were gonna stop there. I've never met a person of color.
I haven't.
Gigi doesn't go outside, everyone.
Yeah, and we went to Catholic school, so you can just assume.
So there's your answer.
Yeah.
Office, I mean, I think it's like one of those shows that like a bunch of people think is like it started off as like a niche thing to like, but as it's gradually gotten older of a show, it's become more annoying, if you will. More of like, oh, you like The Office? Oh, you're so plain and boring. And I mean, yeah, you are, but I mean, it's a good show. There's a lot of really funny jokes that not a lot of people get.
Yeah. I think every time that I watch The Office, there's one joke that everybody else in the room laughs at that I don't laugh at. And sometimes my brother's like, "Did you understand the joke?" And I was like, "No." And he explains it to me, and I go, "Oh, that's so funny." But I will say, it's okay to like boring things. I feel like people get mad when you like something that other people like, it's like saying you like ice cream. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody likes that. But I've never had somebody shame me for liking ice cream, you know?
But and the good
So I
thing,
don't know
the
why we're
funny
doing
thing
that
is,
now.
the funny thing is that it's not a bad thing to like a popular thing, and I think that's a stupid stigma that um, a lot of people go through of being like, I can't like this because it's popular.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think that's true. I think if you like it, you like it. If it so happens a bunch of other people like it, that's actually even better for you because then you have a fan base to relate to. The only thing is what that fan base is up to. Now, when we talk about certain fan bases, um, there's a lot out there that I avoid. The
Hmm.
Good Omens fandom for example.
don't
I avoid
don't
them.
start with them. Don't start with them. You know, there are some things about The Office that you cannot like, and you cannot like The Office. That's fine. Um, but I think that people that don't like The Office, like the U.S. Office and like the UK Office, it's just because they've seen the UK Office. Like I have not really a conspiracy theory. I have a theory that if you watch one and then you start watching the other one's not going to be fun. So it depends on which one you watched first. And I watched the US version first.
Well, the funny that you mentioned that because I, me and my family, we tried watching the UK version for a little bit, and that show is not funny at all. it's not. It's not funny. Um, it's the same jokes and everything. It's just the delivery. It's not. Steve Carell just is so much more entertaining than Ricky Gervais. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
it's true.
Also less problematic.
No, actually, you forget some of the content in The Office. It is very problematic. But you know what?
No,
It's
I
okay.
watched the first season, don't worry.
But it's also like sometimes that kind of thing where he's like, uh, um, guys, this is coming from a cis white woman, but I just want you to know that I think that some of the things that he says are funny to the audiences because they get it.
Yeah.
Because they get people like that, and it's nice to take a step back and see it portrayed like as a joke. Like it's not
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, it's
That'd
some
just
kind
be
of
me.
I don't
I
think
think
it's
the sad episodes are funny.
yeah. I don't think that like it's dark comedy, but it's something in that genre of like, you know, laughing at yourself or laughing at situations that you've been in. Cause
Yeah.
I think that what's put some people off about the first season of The Office especially is that especially the second episode, um, Diversity Day, um, is that it's not meant to be like funny because he's making fun of how like these different
Races.
nationalities of people
Yeah.
are. It's supposed to be funny. Well, not really funny, but it's supposed to be funny in the sense that you know it's like you're watching. It's like talking to somebody that's like this, and so many people that are like minorities will talk to somebody that's like very like against them, and this is a funny portrayal of it because you're not being attacked.
Can I translate what you said?
Yeah.
Gigi means that she thinks it's funny to laugh at oppressors, which it is.
Yeah. You're not laughing with Michael, you're laughing at Michael.
Yeah. You're laughing because you know people like that and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly how they are. You
Yeah.
know? Um,
Um,
we should
which
stray
leads
away
me,
from this path. I feel like
yeah,
it worse before it can get better.
this leads me into one of my hot takes that I actually just realized. Michael Scott season one slash the beginning of season two is not canon to me because they changed him up really fast in the second
He got a
season.
hairline.
Yeah, he got a hairline. They made him less like homely looking, and they made him more funny looking. And you know, when I watched the first season of The Office, I'm like, that's not Steve Carell. When I watched the rest of it, I'm like, yeah, that's Steve Carell.
Yeah.
And same thing with Michael Scott. I don't think that the first season, I think that that's an imposter. That's like his twin brother or something. He
You
came
think
in,
it's
he made all these awful, awful things that he calls jokes, and then he dipped.
it's his evil twin.
Yeah. And I think the reason that they changed him so much was because they realized the first season version of Michael was like really kind of leaning too offensive and too unlikable, and he's the main character. So they had to fix that and make him more fun to watch instead of just a chore of I wish this guy would stop saying these things, you know?
Um, yeah, I get that. Of like, you kind of like see Michael Scott as being this guy who's just like you don't know what he's gonna do next, and but you think you have an idea, and
Mm,
then you're like, oh my gosh, is he gonna do it? Please don't do it, and he does it.
yeah.
Um, that's a lot how my grandpa used to be. So we always compare Michael Scott to my grandpa. We've gone on to compare him to my father now, so that really shows you where my father is in life. But it's I wanted it might be a topic change. Actually, it is. But I wanted to discuss specifically Nellie, her character development. First, when you first like when she starts working in the office and you like and she like starts sitting down in his chair and you just like get mad at her because you're like she's stealing his job.
Hmm.
And then you remember that he isn't there. Like he just left without telling
Yeah.
anyone. And honestly, she's ambitious and good for her.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, she doesn't give him his job back when he comes back, but also he wasn't there. Um, so
Yeah, I
I call
think
that justified. But also it's really you really hate Andy when he comes back.
yeah. I think that like the first time that you watch that episode where she comes in and she sits in his chair and she starts calling herself the manager of the office, you start watching it and you're like, this is an awful character. I hate her. I hate her
Mhm.
so much. But then the second go around you watch it, you're like, what a girl boss, you know? Like honestly, like just coming
Yes.
in and taking somebody's job. The idea that I could just walk into a company, sit down in an empty chair and be like, I am actually senior salesperson here. And
And they
also
just let
she
her.
and also like after Andy comes back and he like his job is in order, he she convinces him to keep her on as something that like they don't need. She's getting paid for doing absolutely no work. She literally says I just get to be I just get to run around the office and do whatever I want, and he just says you drive a hard bargain. Okay. Like he hears her say those words that she just gets to do whatever she wants, and he's just like, okay.
But well, and then it's another thing where like that's when the company gets bought out. But it's also I also like the transition from like the end of the Michael Scott era over to the rest of the office. You could kind of tell that they were losing some traction there because some of the turns they take with the show. And so let's talk about that for a second. So in season 9 and season 8, I'm pretty sure, why do they make Pam and Jim have marital problems? What's up with that?
You know what? I actually watched many videos about that. They they wanted them to have more marital problems. And that's actually on my list of hot takes, which is that I'm glad that they didn't do this. But I think that they wanted both of them to cheat on each other at different times. They wanted Jim to cheat on Pam with her, the woman that he ends up
Yeah,
going to Florida with.
yeah.
And John Krasinski was like, no. And he just didn't do it. He was like, I'm not going to act that out. And then they also wanted Pam to cheat on Jim with the camera guy that gets fired. Um, And I'm glad that they didn't do that for two different reasons. I'm glad that Jim didn't cheat on Pam because it would have made no sense for his character. No sense. And also there's a scene where he like makes amends with Roy at like a bar, and then Roy accidentally kind of convinces him that Pam could be up to something in New York because he's not there. And he goes to drive out, and then he makes a U-turn, and he's like, no, we're not that couple. He has complete trust in her that she won't cheat, which is another reason why I don't think that Pam would cheat, because he has trust in her.
Mm-hmm.
And she still stayed with Roy, who she hated, even though Jim was coming on to her and she liked him, and all she did was kiss him. So I don't think she would have slept with somebody when she was in love with the person she's married to and has kids with.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they didn't do that, but it was weird that they added the camera guy in the first place. I don't know why they kept him.
What was the point of that? Do you have any theory what he
Drama.
was on that? Yeah. No, but I'm convinced that they started doing that because they were like getting like less views and stuff. And so they were like, well, we got to create drama so people want to watch and see what happens to them. Which is stupid because, okay, every Bollywood movie I've seen, they make amends.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't live, then they're dying together. You know what I mean? It's never like I'm gonna like cheat on my wife who I've been trying to get with for 20 years.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and also like if Jim cheated on Pam, it would have been different because it was earlier. It towards like the end of the seasons, they still had a couple more seasons to go. But when the cameraman was introduced, it was like the last season or the season before last, and
Hmm.
there were not many episodes continuing this. So if she had cheated then, there wouldn't have been enough time for them to make amends. Also,
Yeah.
they already were having marital problems with athlete,
Yeah.
so they didn't have to add on to it.
Yeah. And like the end of the show is them leaving Scranton, right?
Yeah.
Like they just sell the house.
Yeah, they
Um
sell the house and then they're like, hey,
with
Dwight.
Carol. They use Carol, right?
Yeah, maybe? I don't know.
I think
I don't
so.
remember. She's got a
Um,
forgettable face.
she's married to Steve Carell in real life.
Oh, yeah. It must have been awkward for them to be like, hey, so we're actually not going to have you be the main love
I think
interest.
that's no. I think that was so funny though when they didn't make her be the main love interest because she was like, he like proposed to her and she's like, "Why are you proposing to me?"
No, can we just. Okay, two things about Carol. Can we just talk about the fact that after he proposed to her, she still dated him for a little bit? Um, And then when she did break up with him because he photoshopped himself into a Christmas photo of her and her kids and her ex-husband and pasted his face onto her ex-husband, he's like, hey, if you walk out that door, we're over. And she just says, I know. And that's the last time we ever see her. What a girl boss.
Yeah,
She
he's
doesn't
really
give a
funny.
shit.
Also,
Um,
that Diwali episode is so cringe. I whenever I want to cringe, I think about that. I never want to cringe, so I try not to think about it. Um, but just the whole like, you told me this was a costume party.
I mean, to be fair, if he had used the words Diwali, she could have just looked up what it was.
Yeah, but he
I
did
feel like
say
I
this
feel
was a
like
we've been invited to a costume party.
yeah. Also, I do find it funny that he says that and not. It's the only like outwardly funny part of that episode that I remember where he realizes that it's not a costume party, but his costume is just a paper mache head, so he just takes it off and he's just normal.
Yeah,
But she
yeah.
doesn't get that privilege. He doesn't give a shit. Why did
Well,
she stay with him after that?
she doesn't. They break up in the parking lot. Remember?
They don't break up in the parking lot. They break up later in his office on Christmas. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
After she gets proposed to, she still stays with him for a little bit, and I don't know why.
Um, but no, I was like back onto the later seasons. Um, I still think the show is pretty good at that point. I know a lot of people tune out. when they get there. I do think it has a really good ending. I like
Hmm.
how at the end of the show they make Dwight the regional manager. I think that's like the best. Like,
Yeah.
and I like how as the show goes on, Dwight and Jim become more like they team up a lot. And I
Yeah.
think that's really funny. I
I
like how it
think,
ends on Dwight's wedding.
yeah. I think that it's really nice to see like that progression of Dwight and Jim's friendship because they I wouldn't go so far to say that they hated each other to begin with, but there were episodes even in later seasons where they hated each other. Like that Christmas party episode where it was like classy Christmas, they were like throwing snowballs at each other and
They
like literally hitting each other and Dwight
meet and greet.
Dwight watched as he as he thought that all the snowmen in the parking lot were him. Um,
That part's so frightening.
they get called by Holly, and they're like, she's like, "Hey, you guys were best friends last time I came here. What happened?" Um, and and I think that it's so nice to see like that turn into an episode where it gets to the point where Dwight calls Jim into his office and is like, "Hey, I was gonna marry this person, but I still like Angela." And he's like, "You've always liked Angela." And it's like very, I don't know, it's nice to see. I think it's one of my
Uh,
favorite friendships on TV, to be honest.
yeah, me too. And like the end, um, God, I forget. I think I know that what you just said. I'm trying to picture though. I have not seen the Office in a while, but I've been trying to like. I can't remember what that last episode looks like, but I do remember they figure out that Angela's kid is actually Dwight's, right?
Yeah.
And that's like when things start turning for them. I think
Hmm.
isn't that like the last? No, that's one of the last episodes when
It's one of them.
they're like sitting at the doctor's office together waiting to hear the results back.
No, because the doctor's office one, she faked the results and was like, "Hey, tell him that it's not his kid." But when Dwight goes to propose to Angela finally, she's like, he's like, "I'll like take care of your child even though he's not my own." And she's like, "He is. I just wanted you to marry me for me."
Hmm.
Which is probably the most like a manipulative thing that she's done, but I it's not like a bad manipulative thing. I don't think so.
Um,
It would be
but
bad if she was like, "Now pay me child support," you know?
another thing is like I remember how the last episode um Jim is like his bestest mensch, right?
Yeah.
And then he says he's not going to go up with him, and then Michael comes out, and that's like the best part of the episode.
No, that is like my favorite part of the episode. I mean, I think it's everybody's, but um
And he
because
only has
it's
like
got
one line, and it's hilarious.
yeah. Well, he's got two hilarious lines that I remember. He comes in and Dwight says, "I thought you weren't going to come," and then says, "That's what she said." And then later, after they get married, he starts crying a little bit, and he says, "It's like all my kids grew up and married each other. It's every parent's dream."
No, but it's just so silly, and I feel like that show popularized the term. That's what she said.
Yeah, I don't know what
Like,
it meant until
no,
this.
I didn't know. Everybody said it when I was younger, and I was like, okay, I didn't say
Yeah,
that. but
I didn't say it. Who said it?
but no, I mean it's got a really good ending. Um, but in between that time, but one of my favorite episodes is like it's like when they go to Florida.
Hmm.
It's so silly. It's like when that girl, her name like Kathy or whatever, she keeps coming
Yeah.
on to Jim, and and then he calls Dwight because he's worried. He calls him for a bedbug infestation, and then he ends up like kicking her out, and then like they just like share the dessert together. Him and
Yeah,
Dwight. It's so funny.
like quietly in Dwight's room too. He let him into his room because then
Yeah.
Nellie comes up with his key card, and she's like, "Is there anybody in there?" And then he turns off the light after she says that the light was on, and she's like, "Oh my god, the light went off as soon as I said it went on."
It's so
Catherine
funny.
Tate is a national treasure. I don't care. She's the only good British person.
I guess you could say she's an international treasure.
New title of National Treasure 3, International Treasure.
Well, okay, so you know how Bollywood stars they usually have nicknames, like Shah Rukh Khan. People call him King Khan. A lot of people call him the Badshah of Bollywood. Um, and uh, like Alu Arjun, a lot of people call him Stylish Star. And there's one girl who my brother likes. Her name is Rashmika, and she is national crush. And my mom calls
Nice.
her Crush Mika.
Why not just call her by her name then?
Because then it's silly. So we got Catherine Tate, international crush.
No, no. Um, I do have something to say about Michael Scott. Of
Say
course,
it.
season 3 and on, because the first two are not canon, according to me.
Yeah.
Um, the title of this section is Michael Scott Autistic Traits, Neurodivergent Argument. So I think that Michael Scott is autistic. I texted you that, um, which made me realize I needed to add this.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw that text.
and the reason that I think he's neurodivergent is I have a couple things on here. That's what she said is his favorite thing to say, and that's a hyperfixation if I ever did see one.
Mhm.
And also that's his like version. I don't know if you've noticed this, but that's like his version of a stim. Because when he's told that he can no longer say it, Jim like eggs him on and tries to say a bunch of stuff that's what she said worthy,
Yeah.
and he cannot contain it, and he has to say that's what she said.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's just him being childish. I think he literally feels like he can't contain it, and that's a compulsion, a neurodivergent one. Um, Also, he's like when he's like happy, he's like happy. He's like very jumpy and he screams a lot. Um, and
Another
also,
autistic trait.
yeah. Well, I don't know if it's autistic, but it's very neurodivergent to me as a neurodivergent person. Um, Also, he says inappropriate things, quote unquote, at the wrong time. So that's another thing. And if that didn't convince you, I need you to think about the surplus episode. The episode where they get the surplus. I think it's just called the surplus, but I could be wrong. um, because they all have like pretty obvious titles, like simple titles that just describe what's going on. Um, but he asks Oscar to explain him what the surplus is. And then he says, okay, how about you explain it to me like I'm 8? And then he explains it. And then he's like, how about you explain it to me like I'm 5? And that's when he gets it. And to be honest, I think that Oscar did a really shitty 8-year-old version because an 8-year-old would not understand what he said. I don't understand what he said, and I'm 20 years old.
Okay,
Um,
can we have a section where we talk about our most disliked characters in The Office? Because Oscar is at top of the list.
okay,
I
we'll
do
get to
not
that.
like
We'll get to
Oscar.
that. Um, but I think that it's actually like such a me thing to do. Like I see myself and Michael Scott in that moment where he only gets it when it's explained to him in simple terms and with like little money. Because if you explained it to me like $4,000, I wouldn't get it. But saying $10 and then it only costs $9 and you have one left over, that's simple for me. So yeah. Anyways, I think we can move on to disliked characters. Yeah, I think we should move on to Olivia's section of characters we hate. I think that you should
Well,
start
not
us
hate.
off.
Hate is a strong word. I hate. I'm not. My
Office.
strongly disliked characters. Oscar's at the top of the list. I'm not homophobic. I just hate him. Wait, I dislike him.
No, you should say I'm not homophobic. I just hate this one gay person.
I like a lot of gay people. I listen to Harry Styles a lot.
Not this
Um,
one.
um, hey, you know what? Karan Johar, he's a great guy, great gay Indian man. Not so much on the Oscar. I don't like this gay man. He makes it his whole trait that people are homophobic to him, and
Yeah.
it's like people are not being discriminated. They're not discriminating against you. You're just annoying,
Hmm.
and it's like I the whole thing with Angela's husband. Like yeah, that's a silly plot line. But also, why do you have to make him into the only gay man at the office? It's like gay men have preferences too. You don't just go for
Yeah.
any guy.
Yeah. It
I would
feels
not
like
go for Oscar.
they just wanted a little scandal there. Which I mean like it's an interesting scandal, but
It's
and
not
it
a good
does
one.
and it does I will say I do like the little family that they have before Angela goes back to Dwight finally, where Angela is living in a gay man's closet and has a kid with him, and they're arguing over who packed the bag wrong. I do think that's funny, but I will say Oscar is like so he said these words, and I would use them to describe them, quote unquote, holier than thou. That describes Oscar. He acts like he is so smart. And I love that episode where Michael proves him wrong. And
Mm.
he isn't in honestly, Michael isn't even really that right. Like he's not saying anything right. But I think everybody just like has the chance to be like, yeah, Oscar, you're not the only smart person in the office.
You do accounting. So what? So does Kevin.
Yeah. And
And then he
honestly, you know what?
babies Kevin.
Kevin gets a bad rap. Kevin is actually good at accounting. He's only good at it when it's gambling though. I don't know if you've noticed that. The
Or when it's
episode
food.
yeah. That episode where the episode where he
Yeah, the
asked
casino
if it
night, right?
was yeah. Well, okay, there's a episode that you mentioned that about food where uh he gets asked that about like hamburgers or something. And then
Mm.
he's like, "Now what about dollars?" And he's like, "Well, you can't." And he just forgets what the answer is somehow. But also the episode where they do those like office Olympics or something. Not the office Olympics, but they do
I
like
know
a
what
bunch
you're
of
talking about.
bettings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have the one where they bet on how long it will take Kelly to explain the Netflix system that they had going back then to Ryan. Um, and he gets it right. But he also says, "Okay, Pam, you win $5 for this reason, and Jim, you also win $10 for this reason." Which, let's be honest, if that was anything to do with paychecks, he would not get it. He would not
Yeah.
understand.
No, that is a good episode. I forgot about that one. There's a lot of episodes that are just wholly underrated. I think that I think that Kevin is probably one of the better characters. I really like Kevin. I think he's really funny. Um, what is the episode where I think it's Michael who does this, but it's Kevin drawn like a pig, and then he rips.
That's like the last episode that Michael's in. Well, okay,
Yeah,
as instead of like the other than the last episode.
and he's
Um,
like, they're like offended by it, and then he rips it, and he's like, "This isn't you.
yeah, you're
This is
better
you."
than this. No, you know what's funny about that is that like right after that, he gives Oscar like a little doll that he said he made. And he was like, I worked really hard on it. And Oscar just accepts it. And he says, And like in the confessional that they do, and
Mhm.
Michael starts laughing and he's like, he has the lowest opinion of me of anyone. He thought I worked hard on this.
Yeah, and that just shows you what kind of person Oscar is. I hate him. Person with a P.
Yeah.
Um,
We're using the
and
H word now.
what? What?
You said you said hate.
Harm. Um, but no, I think that my second most disliked character is specifically Andy in season 9.
Yeah.
I can't stand that man in season 9. Before that, he's funny. Season 9,
You
get
know
rid of him.
what? I think that actually, like, Andy, anytime after he comes back with Aaron, he's just somehow like a really shit boyfriend, friend, all of that stuff. He becomes so self-centered, and even through like all of that, like his family losing money and everything, and even
Mhm.
when he has like a little redemption arc at that last episode with his like shut up and cry thing, um, it still feels like kind of cringe to me. Like that's his only claim to fame, and he still has not learned his lesson. You know, he's the
Yeah.
only character that I don't think will stay happy after this ending. You know?
Yeah. And also, can we talk about how God, what's his name? Pete? I always call him the
Yeah.
one. Um, Pete at the end, how you're just kind of like at first you're like rooting for Andy and Aaron, but the
Hmm.
second Andy starts being a douche, you're like, God, girl, just go with Brock. Wait,
Yeah.
Pete. Pete.
Who's Brock? My favorite. You know what? My favorite character of The Office is Brock.
Gigi, I don't like this. You're discriminating against stupid people.
Hey, I like
Me.
stupid people. I just don't like this stupid person.
But Brock? No, I
You
meant
would.
Pete. You know I meant Pete.
There's no
Don't make fun
Brock,
of me.
Olivia.
None your business, okay? I had the name Brock on my mind. I don't know why, but I did, and I said it. Uh, let me be clear.
Anyways,
I am Mr. Care.
you can't be doing
You can
impressions.
call me by my first name,
Don't make me
Obama.
don't make me Dr. Phil impression you.
Did you give us your Dr. Phil impression?
Shut the hell up, bitch. Go kill yourself. Go sit in the
No, wait.
road and let a car run over you.
No, wait.
Real world send
Can
fam.
we do Obama and Dr. Phil talking to each other? Uh, hello, Mr. Phil.
Shut the hell up, bitch.
Is that all you know how to say?
Um, are are
let
you
me be.
mentally ill?
Let me be. Let me be clear. I am Obama.
Bitch. Anyways, um,
Gigi and Olivia get sidetracked.
I wonder if I'll keep those in. Probably I will because I'll forget to cut them out. Um,
No,
anyways,
keep it in. It's funny. Um,
good short material. Okay, that's enough of that.
my favorite episode of The Office. That would be my favorite episode of The Office. Was when they go to get the pies. I like that episode.
You know what?
That's my
That
comfort
is
episode.
an underrated episode, especially because you know what? My favorite thing about that episode is that after Dwight and Jim have that little talk about like he makes Dwight feel better, and Dwight's like, I'm gonna get you that rhubarb pie, Pam, and then Pam says, actually rhubarb is the one pie I didn't want.
And Pam had to go actually on him.
And she gets cut
Um,
off by Jim, and he's just like, Shh, just let him drive, okay?
no, I love that episode. It's so funny. I like I Jim looks really good in that episode.
Okay, okay. We don't have
That's
time
what I
for
used
your
to think.
we don't
But
have
now,
time for
you
your
know what I
hetero
think now?
antics.
You
What?
know what I think about is when they're up on top of the roof together and they have that talk about what you said, yeah.
Yeah,
But
his
also when
fertility.
when they start talking about yeah, Kevin and how he can do mathematics by food, that part is really funny. And I know we just talked
Yeah.
about that. Gigi, who's your least favorite character of The Office?
I I actually I mean, would it be lame to say Toby? Because everybody hates Toby.
Well,
I
you
just
don't
don't think
necessarily
he
dislike Toby
doesn't.
until he touches Pam's leg.
Oh yeah, that's bad. But also, I know it's like a lame theory and that it's not like universally recognized, but I still think he's a strangler. I don't I don't really care. I'm still convinced. Um
Yeah, because he always goes in on the trial, huh?
yeah, he goes in and he gets obsessed about it, and then the strangler strangles him, and people think that that was him, like Toby going and being like, either I'm sorry, I'm actually the strangler, but I put you in here and I didn't mean to, or it was him going to laugh in his face. And either way, I would be pretty pissed, so I would strangle him too. Unfortunately, that didn't help George Howard Scope's case very well. Anyways, but I don't think Toby, like even without being the strangler, I don't think he adds anything to the table. The only thing he adds is that Michael gets to pick on him, and I actually do like him as a character. I like him being in the series because people get to pick on him.
Yeah.
You remember that episode? You remember that episode where I hit the microphone? Do you remember that episode where there's where Jim is like not the manager, but he gets called Michael by Phyllis, and that like scares him because he's dealing with something.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
in that episode, he's sitting in Michael's office because they're doing the birthday party thing where it's like a conjoined birthday party for everyone. Um, and Toby comes in and he's like, "Hey, could I be added to the birthday party thing? Because Michael knew that it was my birthday last month, but he scheduled the party for like 4:59. People sing in the parking lot, and he's like, um, I don't know, Toby, and Toby's just like, I don't see the harm in it. And then it cuts to Jim, and he's like, Toby's nice, but I don't see the harm in that. Well, it's a cake, Toby.
um, yeah,
I'm
that is
here for
such a
the
good
Toby hate.
episode. That's the one where he pretends to be in the wilderness, right?
Yeah.
Um, the part at the end was so funny, and he's like, "Did you try to do all their birthdays at once?" I've done that rookie mistake. It
Yeah.
was
Um
very silly.
yeah, it's very silly. And then they make that's what she said jokes to each other. And then that's kind of the end of the episode. Also, Michael is wearing a sweatshirt eating cake in that scene, and that is my favorite scene in the office because that is so me coded. Just chilling eating cake in a sweatshirt, you know? If I had cake right now, that's exactly what I would look like.
And he walks in as they're singing happy birthday and he sings happy
And he
birthday.
he sings his falsetto version,
Hmm.
which I would attempt to do, but A, I'm not a good singer, and B, even if
He
that didn't
isn't either.
matter, I cannot hit that note.
Well, why don't we find a way to wrap this up? What else do we have to say about The Office?
um, I feel like I may have had one other thing on the list that I didn't really hit. Um, oh, okay. It was about Jim and Pam's relationship, which we kind of covered, but I'm talking about like early relationship, like season 1 to 4. So the
Oh,
fourth season they get together. Um, but I think personally, and only on paper, like not as a practice of a real relationship. I think that Jim and Pam's relationship is perfect,
mm,
but only on paper because I think that the will they won't they went on for just long enough. They found the perfect
Yeah.
stride in that. Because it didn't go on too long that I was like, okay, I'm going to be really annoyed whether they get together or they don't, you know?
Yeah.
But it also wasn't short enough that we didn't feel sympathy for the other characters because, you know, there was a time where Jim was the only one dating. There was a time where Pam was the only one engaged. There was a time where both of them were dating other people that they didn't want to be with.
And they
And
were both like, maybe it's not meant to be. And then they're like, never mind.
yeah, and it's just very like you get to see all their reactions to that, and you really get to relate to the characters. And then you know you can also see like the decline of well, Pam and Roy's relationship was already on the decline. Let's be honest. But we can see the like decline of Jim and Karen's relationship. Because I
Yeah.
don't know if you also noticed that they also get a little bit snippy with each other towards the end. Like they still laugh, but they seem a little bit mad. And
Yeah.
Karen seems to be as the men of the world would say, stepping on his balls.
Um,
Where
I
she's like, I think we should go into the city a day early so that we can check it out. And he's like, oh, I don't really want to do that.
I do want to say that now that you bring up Karen, that whole thing where Pam discloses her feelings for Jim while Karen's right there, I think that's a jerk move. She should have done that in private.
Honestly, like there are very few moments where I like Karen. It kind of depends on whether or not I've seen Parks and Rec recently because she's a good character in that show. Um, love Ann Perkins, but hate Karen. Um, but I honestly I don't give a shit because I don't like Karen. She's mean. And she also calls Pam a bitch for
Yeah,
saying that she's been thinking that for a while. And you know, I feel like if you were going to call Pam a bitch for anything, it would have been the outburst before, not being like, "Oh, I'm not embarrassed by it. I've been thinking that for a while." Cuz saying I've been thinking that for a while isn't her being like, "Oh, I thought it the day that you guys got together." It's like
mhm,
I've thought this since before you guys ever met. So
yeah. Um, yeah. I just think I don't know. I feel like if it was me and that happened, I would be like, well, you already knew she was on the way out with that guy, but
yeah.
you don't have to, push the needle in further. But also, I want to say that Pam and Jim's relationship, I feel like when it's them trying to get together, that's when the show's the most exciting. When
Yeah.
they get married and stuff, you're like, oh, well, I
I
guess
will
that's the end
I will
of that.
admit that I do think that Dwight and Angela have an interesting relationship, but I've never rooted like very hard for them because at first it's just they're sleeping together and obviously there's feelings, but they're not going to address it.
Yeah,
Um,
they
and
have
then
a
it's
contract, Gigi.
yeah, and then it's like okay, well she said that she didn't want to be with Dwight; she wanted to be with Andy, and then she keeps sleeping with Dwight anyways. Um, and then like even at the end there's like 3 or 4 episodes where it's backtracking and then moving forward and then backtracking where it's like they're getting together, no they're not, they're getting together, no they're not. And
Yeah,
even like if you're watching the series like oh, well after like if you started watching the series now, then you would know that like how it ends and that everybody's happy in the end, so you know that they're going to get together. It's just annoying at that point.
yeah. Well, I say we wrap it up. What do you say? I'm getting kind of tired.
Yeah. I will say before we sign off that I don't like The Office UK and I don't think anybody should, and if you do, you're stupid.
The fact that it didn't get picked up is reason enough to not like it.
Exactly. We know that The Office US had a little decline after Michael Scott's character left the show, but like it still stayed for like a good six seasons, 7 seasons.
Yeah.
So, you know. Anyways,
All right.
I think you can take us out.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening to us talk about The Office today, Pasta fam. We love you. We miss you. We hope you eat some good pasta pretty soon, and we hope you have a good night. Thank you for listening.
Stay hungry.